Oha. Haumatakuipi yushkiwanchi ankampi chantewashtea iuha na pechi uzapido. Ake Elijah Hopkins demie. Wana ushkampingta ye hontu. Hello everybody and welcome to the Buffalo Chaser podcast. I'm Elijah Hopkins. And also joined by co-host Nekshi Dekshi Wamnishake Echiap. So today is week 3 of the podcast, and just as a recap, we're always going to be coming to you live via Facebook. We want you to feel free to be engaged through the comment section on the live stream. We are also utilizing the Zoom platform to host this weekly podcast. We are archiving this not only on Facebook, but it will also be archived on our Fort Pitt Community College YouTube channel. So feel free to go back there and check out the video podcast. We are also going to be utilizing iTunes and different platforms for the audio podcast. We will be archiving that. So, but yeah, every Thursday from 3 to about 4 p.m. So with that, I'll let Uncle Tommy introduce himself again, and we'll just do a recap on kind of what the intent of our podcast, maybe some things that we covered over the past couple of weeks.
Echituelo. How mitaki epidaya ya hipi na dagushka shka blaska echa mushimalo makia na hawayaka po nitaki epi na won't speak ya henita na we dako lako nako wicho kan hecha okia wo ushi witalapo. How mitaki epi ambetikile mi chante ta uaglake na hana pe chuza pelo. Hohe chajemita wamnisha ge doba imachiapi. Omakia na ha agnagupta. All my relatives, again, we'd like to welcome you all here, and you'd help us out lots by watching us on this virtual experience that we're going through, and all that good stuff. And we're wishing to share in a good way as we recap some of the stuff we went over in the past. The importance of one's identity, let's say, if you will, in an ethnocentric manner, but at the same time, it's open. It's an open understanding of just being a human being, basically. And that's what Dakota, Nakota, Lakota is representative of as we carry on our way of life in the spiritual way. When we speak about the spirituality and people have, for whatever reason, they think that if you go traditional, you're trying to be a holy man. No, you're just trying to be a common man. We refer to that attitude of life as ekjea wichasha. And ekjea wichasha, to us, we define that as Indians. Okay? And so we're just common people, a common man, wishing to live life in a good way as we prepare ourselves for this mystery of death. Not to fear it, but again, be ready for it. And again, how we do that is we try to be good to everything and everybody as well as we can. Your individual self can, not according to somebody else's standards. And then you don't have to prove anything to anybody if you're walking in such a respectful manner. You don't have to go out and virtual signal and say, oh, I believe this and I believe it, and I've done that this many times and I went to this. You don't have to do that. You just live it. In that aspect, as we go, we always understand the importance of humility. In other words, humbleness. And so as we get started here, Toshka, if you don't mind, I'd like to share a few I wish to invite our relatives to come on the other side to come and listen as well. So I do that with a prayer, if you don't mind, sir.
Oh,
and so we'll open up in a good way to humble ourselves to this spiritual energy that exists out there that we refer to as Wakatanka, to kind of guide us and direct us in a good way as well as it can, as far as our capabilities are able for us, and then helping us realize our potential. So we're going to ask them and invite them to come in. So Ushima Lomakia Uchekia Atu Kashila wakantaka, tateo ya topa, na mitaki api wanagi makpia aktaya, de hochoka aktahio, nichoke, mushia kenitaki api na ha unchi makau mani na wayaza api na chante yoksi mani, owi chaki apo ushi chalapo. Atukashila na wakantaka, mushia kemitaki api na ha oyate oyasi chanku luta aga omani owi chaki apo. Mushi wichalapo. Tukashila wakantaka giksi apo mitaki api agichita oyate kizuya ekta wichasha belewea apile. Owi chaki apo mushi wichalapo. Naha mitaki api omakia naha ekche wichasha mialo. Naha omakia naha agnagupta winuk chalapi wichachalapi na wakaya japi na hokshilapi na wichichalapi koshkapi na wi koshkapi chanku washte upi omakia na agnagupta mitaki chanku luta gaumani. And as we do these things, my relatives, we pray and we ask that we'll continue to ask all of those things to come and be amongst us. Help us to understand to nasu washach upi. Give us a good, strong mind to help us understand the importance of each new day and realize that as we continue these things, our preparation to at some time in the future, doksha kewa as we share that with our relatives that have gone to the other side, that we shall see them again and we'll be prepared for that. So in a good way, this is the way we speak with a spiritually filled manner for the sake of wishes and understanding from the other side to kind of guide us. So with that, I share this offering to all of you and for the sake of all of those things that support us and help us. Oh, mitake oasi, wamakashta oasi. Oh, hechetuela.
Mtakuye wasi.
Oh,
Padame Dekshi.
hmm.
Yeah, very very beautiful, and I appreciate your words and that beautiful prayer. One of the goals of our podcast is to address any I guess what you would call mental health issues as a result of being forced into um, isolation. I think one of the detriments of being um, in a pandemic is because it's cutting us off from some very natural things that we do, and that's to interact with other people, with relatives, and sometimes that maybe even mean not going to things such as sweat lodges or the churches where we would go to deal with issues, problems, challenges, and so the past couple of weeks, I think we've had some really good, healthy dialogue on what it is to be, as you referred to, as Ikchewi Chasha, and leveraging some of the greatest strengths of our culture to address um, issues related to this pandemic and isolation and things that could potentially be um, impact us in a negative way to stunt our development, and that could affect us in a number of ways, really. But um, one is the mental health, which in turn can affect our physical health, our career, interpersonal relationships with our loved ones. Um, and so as we talk about the culture as a way to and land-based teachings as a way to address some of these things. Um, we did talk about character development, and last week a little bit about Ohiesa, and uh, how he modeled leadership. He modeled it in a way um, that it was indeed possible to be a Dakota, Nakona, Lakota, to be able to carry on the traditions, knowledge, language, but also he went and got a doctor degree. I believe he was a medical doctor, and he came back to his home community and was able to really do both. And I think that was a good discussion we had on how it's can be applied. Our history can be applied to contemporary times, and that's really the how I look at things is my personal challenge is how can I draw upon some of our resources and apply them to now, apply them to the future for our children, and to really enhance our experience here, as a buffalo chaser, as a student. Um, even little things, when we, Uncle Tommy talked about what this can lead to if you don't have a background in participating in some ceremonies, if you've never had that opportunity. um, we have the resources that we can connect you to some, not reinventing the wheel necessarily. There's already individuals, leaders within our community that can, you'll be introduced to if you choose to. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a any commitments to anything other than just by showing up, and individuals like actually Tommy provide that resource, that understanding and knowledge to kind of point us as like a guide in the right direction where to go. And sometimes that's something as simple as going to a sweat lodge and just observing, observing how things are done, or going and helping out and getting rocks, um, participating on brush crews. There's some things happen culturally, seasonally, and I think that it kind of helps us in a natural way to understand our connection with the environment, and that having just being a part of that in itself is mental health. You know, when we're stuck inside all the time, you know, watching TV or doing anything in excess that obstructs us from the natural world, I think will be detrimental. Okay. And I'm guilty of it, but I think in this pandemic, this environment, we're almost forced to do that, but we don't have to. There's some things that we can do, everyday basic things. We can get up, we can exercise, we can apply some of the basic things by talking to individuals that have knowledge and asking questions. Um, it's real easy to get negative, but I think if we choose to, we can use this time to really strengthen relationships with some of those family members that we have. So if there's anything that I missed in that recap, Dekshi, feel free to interject. But I think if I summed it up okay, I think it'd be really cool if we give listeners, those that might be watching on Facebook, maybe an idea of things yet to come. We had talked about possibly interviewing some other elders, because those are the ones that truly have woksape, the knowledge, and then they can share that with us. It's really at the heart of our culture is listening, observing, and then having that connection with people that are older than you to teach us. That's still applicable in contemporary times. And so I'm really looking forward to every week. Like I said, we'll meet, and there's a lot of different things. And we only have an hour typically is what we're doing, but we could always go a little bit longer. A lot of different territory to cover.
Yeah. You know, Toshka Daya Chano Hooka
Mm.
Hetchitulo, Yawashtelo. What how you do that is good, and you say good things, and that's what it's about, and that's representative of the strength that you have developed within yourself. You know, I'm glad you hit on a couple of points there as it relates to land-based teaching. You know, that's a part of, we're not trying to create a labor force, but we'd like for you to understand the importance of going out and being in nature, basically.
Mm.
You know, you don't have to pick up a rock, just be outside. Go out and enjoy some of the finer things in life, like he spoke about getting too carried away and one thing, watching too much TV and all that good stuff. But the old people share with me, and in a contemporary way, they would call it a holistic circle. Okay, he utilizes circle, and the holistic approach is emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. If you go too emotional, too much emotions involved, your circle goes out around. If you get too physical, it goes out around. If you get too spiritual, it goes out around. So that's not what our older folks, this folksape, that this wisdom that they share with us, they remain as a circle. And what they choose to share with you is touch base with each one of those each and every day in a just a common way, and make that a part of your life, and help you become more developed and keep your circle as a circle. And if you get too much into the spiritual side, yeah, I don't like it when somebody gets too holy because I just kind of know they're kind of getting out of hand. Eh? And we're not trying to develop or create priests or bishops or nuns or anything like that. We just want to be just common people, and understanding the importance of that circle of life and that inclusiveness in which we represent. And
Mm.
again, you spoke a little bit about Ohiesa, the champion, and of course his white man's name is Charles Eastman. He was a Lakota from a Pine Ridge Reservation in Oglala. But again, he understood the parallels that were there, and they are parallels. The value system that our non-Indian relatives have is parallel to us, although our primary objective is to go beyond the fear of death and that mystery of death, and prepare ourselves for that. So we understand the importance of that character development that is needed to pursue that. And it's stuff like that that we can go beyond. And as human beings, of course, instinctively, that naturalness of survival, we always make up excuses or stuff to kind of not get caught up in the hard stuff. But sometimes it's good to understand what your potential is in any given area. um, Relationships. You speak a lot about speaking a lot about mental health issues, and relationships is a good challenge. How can you get along with one of your partners? How can you maintain a friendship? How can you maintain a relationship with your father, your mother, your sister, your brothers, for the sake of unifying the family structure again? All of those things, it's not about looking this way and blaming, but looking inwardly and accepting that responsibility of not necessarily being an Indian, but being a human being. And so then that commonness comes into place. And we are always inclusive based on the teachings that I've received, that we're including all the human race, stating the two-legged, Hufu Nupa, Hufu Dopa, Hobali Oyateki, Ichaga, Oyateki, the things that grow, all that stuff, we're all included in that. And as we go along in the future, we're going to gain some understanding of that, not by trying to become a holy person and know all the prayer songs and go to church this many times and go to this many funerals and take pictures and tell people how much you love them. Oh man, give me a break. Seriously, we're just well, what that's called when people do stuff like that, it's called virtual signaling. And then you sit
Mm.
back and you watch and you say, why is this person want to be such a good person? Why do they feel they have to prove it to somebody else? And you sit there and then, of course, the stoicism comes into being, and they say, these Indians don't say nothing, but we do understand what's going on because, again, our older folks will share with us that Heniello, that's them. Just yeah, that's them. Don't worry about them. That's how they are. And you see um, the purpose or the reasoning behind somebody want a virtual signal everything they do in life. You can
Mm.
cover up a pile of shit with roses, but you take those roses out, it's still a pile of
Still
shit.
there. Yeah.
But and then the reality of that is just the fact that from a mental health perspective, it's important to understand that there, we're parallel with the values of uh, our non-Indian relatives. So we understand the importance of strengthening ourselves based on our ability to exercise these virtues each and every day as much as we can. But at the same time, understanding we don't want to fear that mystery of death. We want to prepare for it. And in that preparation, those exercising those virtues will make us feel stronger. That's why you hear them, make yourself strong in that way. And all of these things from a mental health perspective, going not getting rocks or helping or just riding along. You don't have to get rocks if you don't want to, but just being out there, going to a sweat lodge. Don't have to go in, don't have to be praying, don't have to know the songs, you don't have to do anything, but just be around that energy. Um, what I refer to as wakantusa, it's that big spiritual energy that our non-Indian relatives refer to as heaven, what we call makpiekta, itogagatarta. I'm going to go south to the that big spiritual energy. That's the way I look at it. And in that process, that preparation for that is trying to be good to everything and everybody as well as you can. Not as my standards, don't do it as well as I can, but as well as you can. And then it helps you to understand there's tools that we utilize to help us deal with these stresses of life, to deal with these pressures, to deal with this um, mm, lack of understanding, to be provided guidance. Because
Mm.
when we go to the sweat lodge, we don't talk to God, we talk with Him, if it's a him or if it's a her. That's why I refer to the spiritual energy. As opposed, there's no gender there, but that energy is what Wakantanka means to me. And so when that energy comes amongst you, you get a chance to feel it. Just being around the sweat lodges, the whole thing, the fire, the path to the door, the rocks, all are a part of that spiritual energy. And that's what our people are trying to convey without convincing. Make sense?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. See, and they want to share it. They don't want to tell you. They want to share it. And that's why we don't talk to God. We talk with that energy in reference to that higher power. But it's kind of like that. And that holistic approach, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical, you want to try to maintain your circle as to being round, eh?
Mm.
And if you get out of balance, it becomes oblong. And that's what I think that mental health capacity helps us to realize that all of these things that we do, even our language, when we speak our language, it's always done in a respectful way. We spoke about that in the past couple of podcasts. There's no sarcasm in our language when we speak. It's a language of respect. And a lot of people don't understand that. But there's all these things that we can address in respects to making yourself stronger, which will help you deal with in nasu washake. That means give them nasu washake unkupi. Give them a good, strong mind, so that they can accept this information and realize and understand the individuality that they represent. And we say, "Mitake piwachiniato." We're depending on you. We know
Mm.
you. We want to live, so we're depending on you. And that's the younger folks to take on these characteristics to help to become stronger. Because as an old man now, I'm wishing for young people like my Toshka here and so many others that I see. Our young people are so involved and utilizing the technology to help generate a more positive perspective as it relates to some of these value systems that we live by. And that's why I always say the diversity and the uniqueness of natural law, which our value system is based on, should become an enhancement and enrichment for the sake of the growth of our children. And of course, of our youth, which represents our future. So I try to coin that phrase to I initially coined that phrase to help people understand the importance. It's not about me. I lived my life. I did what I wanted to do. Now, as it was shared with me, I would like to share it with you. And again, through the understandings of this technology, through my nephews here and my sons and whatnot, they help me understand I can reach out to many more people, not teaching them how to be an Indian, not showing them how, but affording them the opportunity to use their critical thought process to kind of identify with that exist, and help them understand that that diversity is there, but yet we still represent that uniqueness. And we don't deny ourselves an opportunity to make life better, make this world better, like our relations in the past did for us, our ancestors. And that's what our culture is, that's what our values, historical trauma, uh, in too many cases, and we become the victim. Well, I deal with historical trauma as well, but not to the point to remember the circle, not to the point to where my circle gets us wrong. I want to address it to where my circle remains circular. And so I keep it in perspective. And yeah, I of what people trying to make your circle go oblong. Here, drink this if you're my brother. Here, do these drugs if you're my brother or my sister. They, they, they hate to see that comfort, but that's a learned behavior. That's crabs in a barrel sort of an attitude. But that lateral violence is a learned behavior as well as a result of the dysfunction which evolved from historical trauma, that internalized oppression that we contend with. Don't. That's why we drink, not to blame anybody, but to help again remain keep your circle strong by touching the spiritual and physical aspect of who we are, looking inwardly and accepting that responsibility of being a human being, representative of not only yourself, but your family, your tribe, and indigenous people all over the world as it relates to wishing to become a healthy person. Now, in that whole process, there's many, many stories, many, many songs, many, many, even in the song, I don't even like to refer to them because people call some of our spiritual songs prayer songs. I don't like to refer to them like that. What I call them is in other words, these songs that are filled with this spiritual energy. Eh? Think about that, and these are different avenues in which you can address this uh, influence that has kind of taken us away from our true cultural value system. A lot of, we were talking here earlier, Toshka, about uh, how our old people have dealt with some of these things that maybe have been bought, and maybe I'm talking about ceremony, may have been bought or not received in a good way, and they do them. Well, they can go through the motions, but my teachers have all shared with me, when you go to a ceremony, you should try to go and support them and just observe. And if it works for them, oh man, you just kind of, it gives you encouragement. But if they're just going through the motion and they're jawboning for money, then you pray and you ask them to understand, their grandfathers that are standing back watching. You ask them to understand. Hopefully, in the future, it'll work for them. Because in our fast-paced world, a lot of these ceremonies are done in a very superficial way, going through just the motions as opposed to the effectiveness of the deed. And that's what I'm talking about. And we're facing reality and saying those things do exist, but that's how we live. We have to endure that and tolerate that for the sake of maintaining it. Remember I said about those ones sitting in the middle, Wowi Chake Obo Mani. Those are ones in the center, Chokata Yota Kaheta, Wowi Chake Obo Mani. They're the ones that are walking with the truth, eh? And so the superstitions were incorporated in these things, and you'll hear people that are allegedly spiritual that will speak greatly on superstition, trying to scare people. This is not about scaring people. This is about healing people, making them stronger, making them healthier, making them live a life that would be beneficial of that representation of not only yourself, but your family, your tribe, and of course, indigenous people all over the world. Kind of like that. And so I don't know if you want to add to that, Tushka, but it affects that whole mental health aspect of how we choose to live, because the choice is yours. Not what I tell you to do, because I won't tell you what to do, but I'll
Mhm.
share with you different avenues or options in which you can approach some of these
Oh,
concerns and that whole guidance help.
oh, yeah. Pidama, I like, I was listening to you talk, I've had limited exposure myself when I was younger. Started to participate here in some ceremonies. Um, and we go back to the character development part. I think understanding what roles are, gender roles, I think you'll learn that through hanging around
Mhm.
cultural people, Um, I'm definitely not trying to be anything I'm not, but I think what I've really found helpful, if I could share anything with people, is just the sense of camaraderie from being a part of
Yep.
the ceremonies and the people that you meet, and then
Family, family.
exactly, and then like even yesterday I was on a Zoom call with uh, Auntie Deborah, okay, Tui Deborah. So like when you first
Mhm.
go around some of these ceremonies, they have a way of incorporating culture with uh, some of the things that are prioritize the or that benefit our people is education, right? So it's their priorities are to integrate those things for the betterment, of our communities. And so uh, lo and behold, a few years later, I find myself in a position where I'm able to work at a tribal college and do some really cool things that are of interest. Instead of, I talked to Dexy earlier in other calls. Sometimes we find ourselves, the left side of our brain, we have to go to work and do all these different things, work 100 miles an hour. And it's like, you kind of work yourself into the ground. There's this workaholic syndrome. You can go like you're talking too far out of balance. Easy to do. You want to, justifiably have to make it. We have to make it. We have to pay the bills and whatnot. But if you're not careful, that can be a detriment. You can isolate yourself from family members and whatnot. So I think incorporating the spiritual side of your life and applying that at whatever stage of development that you're at, I think it will be only be beneficial and enhance your experience, your relationship with family, and whatever career you're in. Um, so yeah, if I could add anything to that, I think it's definitely helpful for camaraderie and character development. And one of the things I really also appreciate is being introduced to language. One of my first through the college here, through Fort Peck Community College, was uh, Omakash Kadobi Naj, Chief Hunga Buffalo Stops 4 times. He was the first language teacher that I had at the college, and so he shared a lot with me. He created our school song. The Buffalo kind of gave us that identity that we're very unique in that we're the only tribal college that I'm aware of that has a school song that we identify that way. And so that's kind of where we get the idea of our podcast. But he told me as I was learning language, um, you don't have to be one thing. If you're Shahia, if you're Dakota, if you're Nakon, you can put them all together and make it work for you, and they can be what you call, I guess, synergetic, work together. So don't let that stop you from pursuing. Because I think some of the feedback I've had from other students is where do I fit in? How do you get your foot in the door? So I
Yeah.
think something as simple as taking a language class. If you're interested in Assiniboine, Nakonia, I think Mr. Mike Turcott is offering those courses. And then I think on the code side, we have Hankashi Alex is teaching. So I think those types of things will kind of help us
Mhm.
to learn what our roles are within it's built into the language. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Um, when you talk to people, you use relative terms. There's a specific way in certain circumstances where men use certain gender endings and women use their own. And I think encoded within that is respect, because if we treat each other that way, we're going to be more respectful to one another. So I think that's one of the cool things that the language journey has been that I've learned. If anything, I could share that with people is a lifelong learner, second language learner. But I think it's however we can incorporate it is healthy, and it's showing respect. I show respect to actually Tommy, our bloodlines. I think it's something that's practical and that we can apply in our everyday walk. So
I'll hatch it to, Toshka, one of the things is what you're speaking about, and like Chia Tataka Doba na Honga na Huda Shabi Oyateki. He guided me as well. And of course, in my early years, I was so naive and I was scared of this and scared of that. And oh man, my older brother sure helped me through a lot of frightful stuff. And then when he did that for me, and that's what we're wishing to do here, once he provided me with clarity, because I believe that lack of clarity brings about confusion, that confusion brings about fear, and that fear will bring about antisocial behaviorism or whatever, anger and all that good stuff. But I think once we're provided with that clarity, all that rest of that stuff goes by the wayside, and then we come to understand the importance of enjoying the experience. And as a result of the teachings of Chiemika and Tatanka Dobanagi, I've sat on the hill I don't know how many times without fear. Couldn't present one to concentrate on my wishes, on Wochekia, as opposed to worried about this sound, that sound, oh, what's out there. But and that's what we're wishing to provide here is an avenue or an opportunity to go beyond that fear and address the importance of your purpose and your dedication by whatever means. And so, in a positive way, in a good way, that's why he had taught me that there's as many ways to go to the Creator as there is blades of grass, but as a Nakona, as a Dakota, as Lakota, we respect every one of those ways, eh? And so we don't argue about their religious beliefs, their doctrine, but that doesn't send us away from addressing the reality of how it's affected us up to this point. And so we don't necessarily need to get caught up on that historical traumatic experience that evolved as a result of that, but understanding, well, they had a purpose. They evangelized about their stuff, and that it tells them in their doctrine to do that. But if we didn't have individuals that respected that, but at the same time held on to our value system, we would not be sitting here today. So we always have a great understanding of some of the trials and tribulations that some of our ancestors and our grandfathers, our grandmothers went through just to hang on to this natural law. And Ohiesa wanted to share that as well. Although he was educated in a very highly regarded universities and received his doctorate in medicine, he still maintained that humility, attitude, and he returned to his people. I'm sure he could have stayed in New York and become a very rich man. Well, he didn't chase capitalism in that perspective. He understood the importance of utilizing what he had learned, applying it, and not only for himself, but for sharing it with others, as he tried to share by being an originator in the Boy Scouts to share that with his non-Indian relatives, because he was so grateful and thankful. And I'm imagining through Hunka, he made a lot of non-Indian relatives as well. And that's our way. That's what we do. That's why we say Mitake Owasi. That's why when you hear me pray, I'll say Mitake Owasi, but I also say Wama Kashka Owasi. That includes that complete circle, right? All of this creation that's here on this earth, not just the human beings. So in that process, going through such a tough time, it was shared with me by Arvo Looking Horse, our relative that carries a pipe, that we should, in this tough times, not only end with Midake Oasi, but include yourself in that whole process and include everything by Wama Kashka Oasi.
mm.
That's the purpose for that. But even in that understanding, that's what it's all about. And we say those things out of respect. we share those things in a respectful way, not to dominate or not to realize our dominion over anything, but to just understand it. I'm just a common man in this spiritual energies eyes, if they have eyes, that we're all the same. And so it's something we need to contend with. It's something that we need to get real with, especially in times of need, like what you were addressing initially, Toshka. Uh, how are we getting over and getting through this ability to not be social? Because we depend so much on that, family dinners, gatherings, sweat lodges, dances, just interaction with somebody socially. And how are we getting over that? Well, it's important. And I think we discussed Rocky Point initially, but not to the extreme to where we're starting to realize the impact that guidance in that direction at that time under the smallpox, when our people were dying from that, those that recognized that they did have the smallpox, to protect and for the sake of the greater good, they removed themselves from the tribe, so as to not in, infect the rest
Mm.
of them. And that's where this cave, they went and sat in this cave up here at Rocky Point, and they would sit in there in the finest regalia and take their medicines with them and go up there and sit in there, and they would sit there and pray until, of course, they passed away. And once they did that, then they did the most greatest thing for their people as they gave their life for them. Well, now we have to look at it in a different perspective. We don't want to die. We don't have to, because again, we can protect the rest of our family, the rest of the people, by staying in our homes, which could become our rocky point in a sense. Not totally. We're not going to die here just
Mm-hmm.
by denying ourselves access to the others, but we're going to understand the importance of taking that solitude, taking that time and look inwardly, and then humble ourselves to this higher power, this spiritual energy, and ask them for guidance and direction, exercising the virtue of patience and compassion and empathy, loving, caring, sharing, uh, uh, generosity, all of these things. It affords us an opportunity to really contend with. And when you meet a real Indian per se, for lack of a better word. I don't know what a real Indian is, but someone that truly lives under the perspective, under this auspice of natural law, um, you'll see how comfortable they are in any given situation. They're not afraid, but they don't have a death wish. They're one that understands this importance of inclusiveness in all aspects, and they don't argue, they don't fight because they don't have to,
Mm.
uh, and stuff like that. But people want to look beyond that because they get so melodramatic. You talked earlier about that virtue signaling, and oh, I'm just the best person in the world, and the old people are sitting back. Why is this person saying this? And
Mm.
oh God, give me a break. And we want to say that, but again, the old people are showing us how to deal with people like that. Hello, that's them. Let them do whatever they want to do,
Mm.
and it shows their lack of character, their weakness, eh? And so what they share with us is "Mitakepi perehichiapo," my relative. Uh, make yourself strong. Nitakepi wachiniapalo. Your relatives are depending on you. So in that aspect, during these trying times, during this time, we can look inwardly and deal with our capabilities, understanding the importance of realizing our potential in these various areas to make our circle round. Does that make sense to you, Toshka?
Oh, oh, I think so. It's I think like we were talking about balancing different aspects of our. At least for me, that's how I interpret it. My challenge is to incorporate that, not be part-time Indian, okay, but to try and really integrate it into what I do. To the best of my ability. Because
Mhm.
unless we were born first language speakers, probably a challenge to incorporate some of these things, and there's the influence of uh, colonialism, whatever you want to call it. It's probably been pretty great, but I think we have resources, and I think we just have to take advantage of it. But it's an option, and so I'm choosing to try and raise my family that way. Never too late. Even the little
Go
things.
beyond that. Go beyond that. Learn behavior. You see, nephew. That's
Hmm.
how we do it. Because the reality is, we live it. We live that learned behavior, and we try to aspire to this, and we couldn't. It didn't make us feel good, and that's why critical thought is important. Because, yeah, we. But now, and then of course, you said that's the way I would like to raise my family. We experienced that already. We
Hmm.
tried that. I was the best noble savage in the world, eh? According to their standards, because that's what they wanted us to be, and that's a form of that oppression as it relates to kill the Indian, save the man. And so, of course, now I realize the difference under the tutelage of those individuals that had that woke sape, that wisdom, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And they shared it with me. But guess what? That all evolved from the sake of uh, wuchikia. And again, the decision, I haven't drank in 40 years. I haven't done drugs in 40 years. And I was one of the biggest drunks and one of the biggest drug dealers on the reservation 40 some years ago. Eh? But what what sustained me through that whole time was wuchikia, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Guidance, and teaching, direction, seeking out those individuals that I understood were directed in a spiritual way to support me in my efforts. And so I maintained that decision to live a healthy lifestyle, not to prove and not tell anybody, oh, I'm sober 1 year, 2 years. I didn't. Give me a break. It just became a natural thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and of course, that internalized oppression, the lateral violence that exists. Oh, Tommy's the biggest drug dealer, and oh, he's chasing all these women, and da 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 da. But we tolerate that. We don't say nothing back. And then, of course, stoicism, you sit there and, oh, they're apathetic. That's why they're not saying that. You have great understanding in not having to defend something that's not true. Well, we obo, I walk with the truth. And so
Mm-hmm.
in that, but yet you get all these individuals that continue to live in that behavior of this learned behavior of what it means to identify with Indianness, eh? And I love electricity. I love air conditioning. I love all these things,
Yeah.
in my
Mm-hmm.
car and whatnot. These contemporary things. I'm not going to deny that. It makes life better for me. But yet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to represent from a personal perspective that understanding I can hang in a world that's like that, eh? But when I transition, I can also hang in a world that is very slow, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Slow in the sense that that's what we need. And so this time to slow down where you're sitting in your home, you have to sit there and pray all the time and take out your pipe and oh man, give me a break. But it's an opportunity to go within and really
Mm-hmm.
recognize who you are as an individual and realize that you have capabilities that you'd like to develop in realizing your potential and what your purpose and dedication in life is. And how do you do that? Well, the hardest thing I ever did, Toshka, was I fasted in a house.
Oh,
The
oh,
hardest
Techia.
thing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like especially if you have family there. They're cooking breakfast. Oh man! And the third night, man, oh,
Yeah.
they're cooking supper, and you hear the toilet flush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody taking a shower. Oh man, that's the hardest thing I did. But I did it, and it benefited me in the long run. And it wasn't no because I wanted to be the Pope of all Indians. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to maintain my commonness, my ekche perspective, and that's what it took. But that's one of the hardest things. You take an opportunity to do that. Just put yourself in, get some smudge, get your pipe, and sit there for a while. It doesn't have to be 4 days and 4 nights. Fast one day, one night. but in prayer. Okay, Wuchikia,
Mm.
kind of like that, and then it'll help you humble yourself to all that is. That's another thing as it relates to mental health, the avenue and the tools that we have available to us that sometimes we take for granted. We think, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a holy man. No, you're a Kichewichach. You're common. You're a common person. So yes, you have every right to do that. Make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh, that's too. I think it's
No.
okay to make mistakes too if you're listening, you're trying to get your foot in the door to
Yeah.
learn. That's all part of it, and also to be at the same time, be unapologetically Dakota, Nakon.
Okay.
It's okay
Mhm.
to put it out there and to use it as a source of strength. So it looks like we're wrapping up on the hour. We've tried to go to about 4 o'clock. Is there any
Yeah.
other topics you want to cover, Dekshi, or anything else you want to add?
Well, know that in respects to this land-based teaching, that's one of the things that, and again, we can't think enough about AICF or American Indians College for supporting these efforts. And again,
Mm,
like I said, in the budget, I incorporated some things, but that's yet to come. Uh, where different agencies understand our cultural value system is based on just common stuff, eh? Like the
mm,
sweat, like the Sundance, like even the tools we utilize to do that, eh? It's
mm,
very common, but yet it's not important to them. Well, they need to understand these avenues of dealing with these issues in a holistic way. It's important to recognize our uniqueness based on that diversity that we represent. Because we're not trying to become exclusive. We're trying to understand the importance of inclusivity, but there are tools that we utilize, and that's what we can express to the outside people, understanding, oh, heck yeah, like a white farmer. Hey, can I have your those rocks? All you want rocks for? Take them all if you want.
mm,
Not knowing what they're for, and because it takes too long for him to understand what we utilize it. Well, lots of them out here do not after, of course. A lot of people getting them. The field rocks we use. There are certain ones that we can use, so they take them. A lot of people don't understand the importance of that. But the thing of it is uh, those common things that people take for granted, we find very important and respect that spirit of the rock, spirit of the fire, spirit of the steam, apuya, eh? When we steam ourselves out, all that good stuff, and the healthy manner in which it's done. Like it's hard for me to go now to a sweat lodge because of the COVID, eh? And so I just want to state, because I'm old now, I'm 67, and I wouldn't really I couldn't recover if I ever got that. So I have to protect myself. But at the same time, be careful in the way these things are done. But it's hard to stay away from that for me because I love the sweat so much and I love my
mm,
sweat hot. But we need to understand that this value system that we live by, there's tools that we utilize. And hopefully in the future, somebody will recognize that and realize that, oh, I have these old rugs that nobody wants to use, and we'll wash them off and put them in the sweat, eh? Or these old blankets, I'll throw them in. No, we'll wash them and put them as covers over the sweat, tarps and stuff like. Those are important to us. Finding a good willow field, eh? Along the banks, and they don't just grow anywhere, stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying. Hopefully, through our podcast, people will begin, not only Indians, but non-Indians. That's the inclusiveness. They participate by helping us and supporting us in these efforts to do some of this protocol that we respect highly in pursuit of being healthy. And so that's that inclusiveness that it represents. And all of these things that go on, again, don't let the fear keep you from coming to something that's very healthy. Go beyond that fear. And like our non-Indian relatives say, with God on my side, who can be against me? There you go.
mm.
Keep that attitude and you can continue on in a good way. But I just wanted to share that because people are going to begin to realize some of the healthier qualities and characteristics that we have in our ceremonies. And it's not just about um, pounding the drum and putting on beads and feathers and all that good stuff. But there's a lot more to it. And it's from a holistic perspective, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And making your circle, maintaining your circle round. Okay. But anyway, we can go on and on, but that's enough for now. We'll save the rest for next time.
Oh, henach shado. Watape yoyate doksta kewachia kapikte. Apetu washte yohapo.
How, nish, nish